What's going? Oh Lord, I look disheveled. Alright, what's going on YouTube? Thanks for coming back to another episode of Scattered Brilliancy. Right now, I'm going to be reviewing Love and Hip Hop Hollywood Season 2, next episode. I guess like 8, something like that. Let me get my life together real quick. Alright, excuse the background. I'm about to get married in less than 2 weeks, so yeah. So, of course, it's just a recap and my thoughts. So let's start off with Tierra. Tierra is going to get her nails done and she meets up with Moniz. Um, Tierra's just pretty much talking about the fact that she's between Ray J's and Princess's relationship, and she's in their relationship again. And she doesn't really understand why. So she's just pretty much determining and telling Moniz that she needs to get out of it. She's also talking about the fact that she wants to go get lipo because of the runway show that her and Hazel are trying to put together. That she's just feeling a little bigger than normal because she's always been used to being excuse me, used to being a thin girl. So she said she's gonna go get lipo. Now, one thing she said in the confessionals was that she said, I know the haters are gonna say, why don't I just get in the gym? And let me say this, I was one of the people who did comment, excuse me, who did comment when she was saying that she was gonna go get lipo. I said, why don't you just go into the gym? It doesn't make a person a hater because they comment that why don't you just go to the gym, as opposed to spending thousands of dollars to get somebody to suck the fat out of you. I mean, it's really all about a lifestyle change. If you really want to lose weight, you got to get in the gym and make it happen. Wearing a waist trainer or getting liposuction is only going to be a temporary fix if your lifestyle and your eating habits are going to be the same. So that's what happened with her. All right, let's move on to Nikki. So Nikki goes to meet up with well, not even meet up. She goes to visit Hazel E. Apparently, at some point or another, Hazel E. was in a really bad accident in Dubai. She was in an ATV accident and she lost control of the ATV and crashed. Something went through her nose. I kind of missed that part. I know that I feel like they said she hit the handlebars, but something went through her nose, and like it was bad, bad to the point where she pretty much had to be rushed to America within 48 hours, or she was going to end up losing her nose altogether. I guess due to infection because of the scar or whatever it was that went through her nose, and wherever they were riding ATVs that was like out somewhere. So I don't know. So she gets there and she meets Milan for the first time, and Milan takes her upstairs, and Tierra is up there as well. And Hazel is just explaining exactly what happens because the blog is pretty much making it seem like all of it is fake and it's just a cover up for her getting her nose job. Now Hazel says that she does want a nose job. She just didn't think that it was going to happen this way. And Milan is like, well, maybe this is God's way of getting you your nose job or something like that. So she was just pretty much telling him that it was a really serious situation, and she's just happy to be alive, but she's fearful of how she's gonna look once she comes out of all of it because she says, her face is how she makes her money. So yeah. Later on in the episode, she has her consultation with her doctor to remove the bandages because when we see her in the room, she's all bandaged up and bruised up and everything, and she looks bad. So she goes to the doctor, and Tia goes with her, just as support for her to get the bandages taken off. Um, as a side note, the hair color that Hazel E had when she went to the doctor looks really, really nice on her. I would hope that she sees this video. Hazel, if you see this video, the hair color that you had when you were in the doctor's office, keep that hair color. It fits your face very nicely and it matches your skin tone very nicely because that platinum blonde looks a hot mess. Um, so they take the bandages off, and her nose doesn't look horrible. She doesn't look like Toucan Sam, but I mean, you can tell that something has happened. Like you can see the scar, a little bit of bruising, and definitely some swelling. But she's really not trying to hear any of that. She sees herself in the mirror and immediately starts crying about the way that she looks. And she goes on to say, she was saying earlier that she wanted the nose job, and maybe this was, her getting her nose job. But she's just really, really, really upset about the way that she looks. And I would naturally think that somebody who is building their brand or has built their brand on their looks, how they would feel, upset if their looks were not tarnished. Like imagine if this was Kim Kardashian and this was on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Imagine the kind of meltdown she would have over her face potentially not looking the way that it used to. What I did find interesting throughout this whole part about Hazel E was that in the confessionals, she has a bandage on her nose. See, I don't really know how reality TV but I know that they kind of record their confessions periodically throughout the season, and it just depends. So I just thought it was interesting that for the first six or so episodes, she doesn't have a bandage, but for this episode she had one. So I'm just wondering, is she gonna keep that bandage on for the rest of the upcoming episodes? And it makes me wonder, did she need the bandage during the first sets? They just didn't want her to wear it because they hadn't got to that point in the story. So I was just like, that's interesting. But that's pretty much it for Hazel. Um, let's go to Nia. Nia is hosting a mommies and mimosas event, and it's just for mommies to be able to get out and mingle and socialize with other single, like I don't know if it's single mothers, just mothers in general. And her father, Teddy Riley from the group, he's in Blackstreet, super producer. He shows up. If you don't remember, back in season one, we found out that Teddy Riley is not her biological father, but he is the father that's been around and was there to help raise her. So he's pretty much there just to tell her about his concerns with her relationship with Soldier Boy. Like I put in the comments in my last video, I didn't get a chance, I forgot to talk about the meeting that Nia and Soldier had last episode, where Soldier was pretty much like, you need to deal with it, that he threw up in her face the fact that he's worth 25 million and he can have any girl that he wants, was pretty much how that went. So her father has heard all these terrible things about him, and he's just really concerned, as a father should be. And I think I asked a couple videos ago, like, where is her father? You know what I mean? So he's just asking her about that. Him like many other people. I don't know if that's correct grammar, but he, like many other people, feel like she deserves better, and she really does. But she's chosen to deal with his mess. I mean, she's appreciative that he cares, but this is what she wants, and that's the sad part about it all. Later in the episode, Nia meets up with Soldier and tells her about the fact that she met with her dad, and she doesn't want her dad to think that he's a bad person. And yeah, Soldier Boy has changed his tune. He wants them to get on the same page. He's now saying "F those hoes." He felt like this whole thing was a learning experience. And to be perfectly honest with you, all he's doing when he's telling Nia all this stuff is he's just talking to her enough to get her back on his side, talking to her enough to get her back in the bed, talking to her enough to just keep her at bay so he can go back to doing whatever it was he was doing. Because in the confessions, he talked about I am who I am, and I don't like that. I don't like his character on this show because he's just a typical ain't-ish type dude who is taking advantage of a girl and just putting her through the motions and just feeding her everything that she needs to hear when she's got fit, when she's got tired of his BS, and he just tells her what she needs to hear so that he can go back to doing whatever it was he was doing. So I mean, while I don't like his character, I also don't like Nia's ignorance, I guess maybe. She's just really naive to it all. Like, she just does not realize that she definitely deserves better, but her self-esteem has got to be low for her to want to continue to deal with a man who lets you know that he's going to see other women, and you're okay with that. So that has to speak to her self-esteem. Anyway, so while they're talking, Nia pretty much is now, I guess, trying to really put a time thing on it. She's like, I need to know what's going on in our relationship. Where are we going in the next 5 months, in the next 5 years? I need to know that. And Soldier Boy's response was he doesn't want to jinx himself because he could be dead tomorrow, and he don't want to put, a time limit on it. And this is how I look at it. You don't want to tell the girl that you're supposedly changing for where you see y'all going in 5 months because you have the potential of dying tomorrow. Maybe I'm the only person who does this, but does anybody else pay their bills with the potential of knowing that you still can die tomorrow? If I pay my light bill today and I die tomorrow, was it really a point in me paying my light bill? No. But do I still pay it? Yes. Same with a phone bill. Same with a water bill. So I don't really understand how you can have this whole thing of you don't want to jinx yourself by doing something with the potential of knowing that you could die tomorrow, and what you did was a waste of time, but you pay your bills. That's the exact same thing to me. Soldier Boy's immature. But he says he's gonna try to work on it, and Nia is appreciative of that, so she takes it. On to Brandy. So Brandy apparently is a rapper. Excuse me, I'm still getting over that cold. It's coming out of my system now. She's in a group called Queens, and she is on one of Nick Cannon's labels. So they meet up with Nick Cannon along, and her husband is there. They meet up in the studio, and Nick is just talking about all the money that he's wasted because of how Brandy is. And I can imagine that she's pretty crazy because she's crazy on the show and she's real extra. He doesn't like the fact that she's battled with producers and walked out of sessions. So he's just like, I've been wasting my money on y'all's group. And I mean, the group hasn't put out anything, which is not a surprise because they haven't seemed to be able to complete anything because of her attitude. So Nick Cannon's suggestion is that Brandy worked with her husband because he says her husband is one of the hottest producers. I mean, I don't know anything that he produces. Not to say he doesn't produce anything. I just don't know about any of it. So he just suggests that they should work together because the husband knows how to handle her, which is very true. Max has reservations about it because he knows his wife and he knows that she has the inability to separate business from personal, the friendship and all of that. It's all blended in together for her. So he's concerned about doing that. Later on in the episode, obviously they decided they're going to go ahead and do it, and Nick is happy about that. But they're in the studio. It's Brandy. She's with her girl. I didn't write her name there. The other girl in the group, and Max is there, and then the engineer. And Brandy is rapping, and she keeps messing up, and Max is seeming frustrated that she keeps messing up, and he's just like, I hated what you did, and she just wished that he would give her some kind of encouragement, but he's like, I'm not in here as your husband, I'm in here as your producer, so I just need you to get it right. She takes a break, and the other girl goes, and the other girl kills it, as they say. And he's like, yes, I love it. That's how you do it. And she's like, can I get some of that encouragement? So pretty much all that's happening is Brandy is talking about, we're going to be working together. I need you to encourage me like you encourage her. Whereas Max's viewpoint is, I'm the producer. I'm not your husband or your friend. So I need you to get in there and do what you need to do. And don't worry about how I'm trying to encourage you. And that's pretty much all that's important about that. So let's see. I think we need to go on to Moniz, Fizz, and all of them. Because, yeah, that's who this episode was pretty much about. Alright, so Rich Dollaz meets up with Marla. Marla is Moniz's mother. Moniz is the little Fizz's baby mama. You with me? Cool. So they meet up, and Marla is apologizing for that first meeting that they had a couple episodes back where she was questioning him about his child support and his intentions and all that kind of stuff. And not Fizz, Rich is kind of like he's unsure who she's trying to protect at this point. Is she trying to protect him or is she trying to protect Moniz? Because now it's starting to sound like she's trying to protect him. Because Marla, this whole episode was just pretty much, Marla, this whole episode was just pretty much, in a sense, dogging out her daughter, but not necessarily, just more like kind of giving warnings that you need to be careful about what you're dealing with, know who you're dealing with, and things like that. She asked Rich, how can I help you? And Rich is just saying, the main issue is custody, and Marla goes on to tell Rich how Fizz ended up with full custody of, is it full custody or primary custody? It might be primary custody of their son Cameron. And Marla says that there was some kind of altercation, and Fizz was calm, but Moniz was like blowing up. So when the police came, they saw that Moniz was the aggressor, so they awarded Fizz with the custody. But Rich is like, that's not the story that I got. Rich got from Moniz that Marla went to the police on Fizz's side. So pretty much, Moniz does not feel like Marla has her back when it comes to all of this custody stuff. Marla just really seems fed up with Moniz's BS. That's really how it comes off, and I'm thinking that's pretty much all it is. Alright, so let's move on to Lil Fizz, because all of their stories kind of run together. So, earlier in the episode, Fizz is hanging out with his son Cameron. He's talking about how Moniz is supposed to have him on the weekend, but they're like 3 weekends into whatever month this is, and Moniz has yet to pick up the son. So Fizz is just frustrated with having to overcompensate for what he has to do for their son because she's not holding up her end of the deal. Apparently, from the way they were talking, it seemed like Moniz had more custody or more visitation rights other than just the weekend. And maybe it's not even visitation rights. Maybe that's just the arrangement that they worked out, was that she was going to see him on more than just the weekends, but now somehow was dwindled down to only the weekends. And now she's not even coming to see him on the weekends when she's supposed to. So he's frustrated about that. He's trying to figure out what he needs to do. He goes and sits down with Omarion, and they catch up for a little minute. And he tells her pretty much the exact same thing, how he's trying to balance being single while being a full-time father. And she's not doing her part, so he decides that he needs to meet up with Marla. Now let me pause real quick and say this: I'm very appreciative for this current season of Love and Hip Hop Hollywood because they have balance as far as people who have it together and people who don't have it together. I think it's really, really a good look that while they have on one end of the spectrum Soldier Boy, who is stereotypical, guy, just not really that great of a person, and then you have on the other end you have Little Fizz, and you have Omarion, and you even have Willie, who all seem like really good dudes. While they are flawed to a certain extent, what's being shown through the show is the positive sides of their character. And I'm sure they all have positive and negative sides, and Mona Scott Young has chosen what side she's going to show. I'm appreciative that she has decided to balance it out and show the good side of these black men on television, and it not just be all Soldier Boy type stereo storylines. Because when I think about like the past Atlanta season, I don't necessarily know if it was exactly like that, but I was just able to really recognize that today and really be like, wow, okay, I have at least 3 black guys that I can say are showing some excellent examples to the world on this show, which is a really good thing. So I'm really appreciative of that. So Fizz goes and he meets up with Marla, and he talks about he just feels like he's pulling teeth and he's feeling taken advantage of, and he's asking in a sense for Marla to pick up the slack of Moniz, and Marla's stance is pretty much like, no, I'm not Cameron's mother, I'm his grandmother. I'm not You and Moniz are not going to get in between me seeing my grandson, but I'm not going to pick up the slack for her. And it's coming off the Fizz like Marla really doesn't support Moniz, and this is his awakening in realizing this. All this time, I think he's thought that Marla has fully supported Moniz and has always, in a sense, taken her side. But now he's seeing that that's not really how it is. So Marla's thing is, apparently she's told him before that what he needs to do is get into a court and get awarded full custody and make Moniz pay him so that he can hire a nanny, so that he doesn't feel distress from having to take care of him solely. And Fizz doesn't like that. Fizz doesn't like that that was her go-to answer. And he gets emotional. And, he gets emotional because Marla says that neither of them meet the level of disheartening dedication. And Fizz disagrees with her because of everything that he has to do for Cameron. He's like, that's not true. And like I said, he starts crying. He gets emotional. She tries to, console him. But he just says he's good and he knows what needs to be done. And what he feels like needs to be done is he needs to go meet with Moniz and tell her that now he's realizing what's going on. So we see Moniz singing later on the episode, and the song sounds like it has potential to be a really good song. And Moniz isn't a bad singer. She's in a rehearsal, so I mean it's not perfect, but she sounds like she's probably a pretty good singer, and the song sounds like it could be potentially really good. So maybe they'll put that out later. We'll see. But he walks in. And he's just confronting her about, why haven't you been around for the last 3 weekends? And really trying to get to the bottom of what's going on with her and trying to figure out what it is. And he tells her that he met with her mom, and Moniz feels betrayed, as she should, to find out that her mother is meeting with her baby's father to talk about whatever. But she breaks down. Pretty much all that happens in this scene is Moniz feels like Fizz has never cared about her. She says, Fizz asks her, what is it that you need from me, or what is it that you need done, or something like that. And Moniz is like, that's the first time you've ever asked me that. I guess the son is like 3-4 years old. She's saying all the time that he's been born, that's the first time you've ever asked me that. And that is the reason why she feels like he doesn't care. So Fizz is he sees Moniz in a new light now. He sees that she has no support system, and that, in a sense, he is her support system. So I guess from this point forward, we're going to see a different dynamic in the relationship between Fizz and Moniz. Now, last person to talk about from this episode is Amber. It's not a lot, though. Amber, at the beginning of the episode, was sitting with her sisters. And, of course, it's kind of to pick up from the last episode. The sisters are just talking about, yeah, we knew something was going on. It seemed like everybody knew, but nobody wanted to address it. So Amber is like, I need to just talk to Milan and find out what's going on, because Amber apparently has hung out with Miles and Milan all together, and she needs to know, like, are they sleeping together? Is it just sleeping together? Are they in a relationship? So she calls Miles, and Miles lets her know that yes, we've been sleeping together. And that's not as shocking as when he tells her that they're in a relationship. She just drops the phone on that. She's just so shocked to know that she's been hanging out with who she thought is her man, and he's with his man, and they all together. So she's just really shocked and disappointed and all that kind of stuff. And the sisters are like, yeah, we knew, and da 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 da, and all that kind of stuff. And lastly, the episode ends in dramatic fashion with um, Amber hitting up Milan saying we need to talk about some things. So she walks up into the studio, and of course that's how the episode ends, because we're gonna get into all of that next episode, and this will be the confrontation between Amber and Miles. Amber and Milan. Milan says in his confessionals that he pretty much needs to tell Amber that Miles is my man and he's gonna be with me, and you need to go ahead because you're the past, you're not the future. And Amber is going in um, to get answers from Milan, hard nipples and all. It's just something about when I see a female with hard nipples, it's like, you don't feel that? I always feel when my nipples are erect. I always. You just gotta rub them things down. But maybe she didn't feel it. So that's it for episode, I guess, 8 of Love and Hip Hop Hollywood Season 2. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, rate, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will be seeing y'all a little bit later. I'm getting married next weekend, so don't really know how the videos are going to go from there. I do know that after next Monday's video, y'all won't get one the Monday after that, because I'll be on my honeymoon, and I'm not getting on YouTube during my honeymoon. So I'll be talking to y'all later. Y'all have a great week. Peace.